today, something a little bit different. Normally I post on the practicals of lesson preparation and how we deliver our talks and how we exegete a passage. But today something a little bit different because I've been sent a question on John chapter 10 verse 8. And I thought I'd just throw a few thoughts out there and see what you think about this passage to help my friend in India who sent me the question. Johnson, all the way from India, sent me this question. Hi Johnson, hi Cicely, Jones and Jeremy. Great to hear from you. Glad to hear you're well over there in India. And thank you for this question on John chapter 10 verse 8. So let's dig into this and then let's see what we all think about it. So it reads thus in John chapter 10 and verse 8. Therefore Jesus said again, all who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. So the question Johnson's asking me is, who are these thieves and robbers? Who are they that Jesus has in mind? Well, here are three possibilities. Maybe you can think of more, and I'd love to know that if you do, because I like to keep notes on these kinds of things. So maybe it's, first of all, could be unfaithful shepherds, unspiritual shepherds. You could be thinking back to Old Testament days, to the kinds of things that Jeremiah and Ezekiel said about the shepherds who did not take care of the sheep. For example, here in Jeremiah chapter 23, woe to the shepherds who are destroying and scattering the sheep of my pasture, declares the Lord, because you've scattered my flock and driven them away and have not bestowed care on them, I will bestow punishment on you for the evil you have done. And certainly as you read through the New Testament, we can see how Jesus considers the shepherds of the past, but also the shepherds, supposed shepherds of his day of Israel, have not done what they were called to do. So that's one possibility. You might also want to have a look at Ezekiel chapter 34. And if you want to dig a bit more into Ezekiel and the topic of shepherds, I can recommend my friend Douglas Jacoby's series on that, some writings he's done. There are some podcasts, and head over to douglasjacoby.com to find those. So that's one possibility, unspiritual shepherds. A second possibility is that Jesus, when he's talking about thieves and robbers, might be talking about false messiahs, those who wish to be or pretend to be messiahs, but aren't actually genuine, as of course he is. For example, in Matthew 24, verse 24, for false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. Similar passage in Mark 13, verse 22. These false people, these false prophets and false messiahs will appear, Jesus says. And so they would also be thieves and robbers, those who don't actually have the best interests of the people at heart, but their own self-advancement. So possibly unspiritual shepherds, possibly false messiahs, and possibly just, in a sense, the generic the Jews. John in his gospel often refers to the Jews, not necessarily meaning individuals, but more the settled culture and an approach to the faith of the nation of Israel and those who lead them. It might just be talking about that sense of the overall culture, that these are people who will not listen even to the Son of God, will not even listen to the Messiah, even when he appears. They remain blind. Of course, we've got the wonderful irony as well as the tragedy of what happens just before John chapter 10 in John chapter 9, where the man born blind is healed by the power of God, and the people, the Jews of the day, those around Jesus, attribute this to some other strange power. They cannot understand how this could be from God. They end up being the blind instead of the blind man. They cannot see that this really is God's anointed, God's Messiah, and their Messiah, in fact. So they treat the man born blind badly. They are bad shepherds in that sense. So perhaps it's one of those three that Jesus is talking about here, about thieves and robbers. It could be the unspiritual shepherds of the past and those of the day of Jesus. It could be the false messiahs. It could be just the Jews generally, that their rejection of the Messiah and their mistreatment of the people of Israel who needed a godly compassion to come through them, which does come, of course, through Jesus. So those are some possibilities. How does Jesus finish this section, this paragraph, if you like? In John chapter 10, verse 10, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full, or in all its fullness, its completeness. So what kind of life is he talking about here? The kind of life that he talks about in verse 9, which is in between these verses we're looking at. And in verse 9, he says, I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. So what kind of life is that? It's a life where you find salvation. It's a life where you find safety, and it's a life where you find sustenance. Pasture, salvation, safety, coming in through the gate, being saved, coming in and going out safely, finding pasture, finding what we need. The thieves who come to steal and kill and destroy are not interested in you or I, the sheep, having this. Instead, Jesus is the one who is able to supply it. A very powerful image here of thieves and robbers. A very powerful image of a good shepherd feeding and taking care of and protecting his sheep. Aren't we lucky to have a savior like that? Aren't we lucky to have a Messiah like that, a king willing to serve and look after us like that? It's a wonderful image. So I hope that's helpful, Johnson, Cicely, and the boys. Let me know what you think about that. If you've got any other ideas as to who these thieves and robbers could be, please let me know. Either send me an email, malcolm@malcolmcox.org would be the place to send it, or drop a note into the comment box wherever you hear the podcast or see the YouTube video. And if you don't mind leaving those publicly, that would be great, so that we can learn from each other, because we learn best when we learn in community. And can I ask you to pass the link on to anyone who you think might benefit? And I'd like to issue a challenge. How about a challenge for today? Just for today, the challenge is write a review. Write a review if you listen to the podcast in whatever place you get it from. If it's YouTube, maybe hit the like button or hit the bell to subscribe. But leave me a little review. That would help not just so much me, but more to get these recordings known more widely, which may, I hope, be helpful to some people. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful indeed, and I give my love to you, Johnson and Cicely, and my love to the nation of India, and I hope all is well with you. So until the next time, take care and God bless.